Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is ScopeSF and today we are doing another AFK journey video. I didn't think I was going to be doing another one of these so soon. I was actually, I had a lot of fun doing the last letter pool, just kind of seeing my account grow really rapidly all at once as I was continuing my little side project of how far can you go, essentially, as a free-to-play player with just the Mauler comp, or like the store-bought Mauler comp, where you have Brutus, Odie, Coco, and Entendre. And I'm still working on that project. It's actually going really well. I'll give a quick update over here. As you can see, I was able to get Brutus and Odie to Paragon already. And right now I am working on Coco. And then I might consider working on Entendre afterwards. I think I am going to go... Yeah, I think I am going to stick to that little project. I got them all to Supreme Plus, pretty much as you saw in the last video. I'm going to see if I can get them to Paragon as well. And so far, so good. Entendre, I don't have many other copies, but Coco, I'm about halfway there just through purchasing them from the Dream Realm store and getting them occasionally once in a blue moon as I open the odd recruitment letter here and there. But that's not important. That's not what this video is about. This video, I feel like I have to make in defense of the new Mauler that was just released. The mama bear herself, Gerda.
Careful! The water's hot!
So as you can see, Gerda was just released on the new banner. And she is one of the most divisive characters I have ever seen in this game. I'm kind of looking through one of my Discord servers that I'm in. I'm looking through YouTube comments. I'm watching what the more professional YouTube content creators for AFK Journey, like Zebo, Puzzle, Vulcan, all them, what they think about Gerda. And it's funny, I think the content creators are probably some of the most respectful. They're cautiously optimistic about her. They think that she's fine enough for what her kit is, but their general consensus is they're more excited about Chimera and Faramore, so they're just saying skip Gerda, wait for Faramore and Chimera. They're a lot more exciting to pull, so you might as well save your resources. But then I see a lot of other players just in the comment sections of their videos saying, yeah, Gerda's an easy skip, probably one of the worst characters released in a while. Why did they release a tank that heals your enemies? Why did they even release another healer at all? Even within the Maulers, we already have 3 healers that are some of the best in the game. We don't need one that's a tank, and we'll get to that in my video a little bit later. But it's just weird that the general consensus is like a lot of the more professional players are cautiously optimistic. There are some people that think she's incredible. I'll be honest, spoiler, I'm in that camp, and I'll explain why. But then there are so many other people who think this is a wasted character slot that might be okay enough-ish in Supreme Arena, but everybody is okay enough-ish in Supreme Arena, so what's the point? I am on a mission to defend Gerda and show where I think she fits into the meta. I personally think, if my memory serves me, and if my theories and mathematics are all correct about it, I think Gerda can be meta-defining. It requires a little bit of AFK Journey meta history, something that was a little bit kind of under the radar. It was a flavor of the month for a little bit back in Song of Strife, but it was an old AFK pushing strategy that I think Gerda can fully revive. And we'll go over that in a little bit, but first, let's actually do some pulling for Gerda. I'm definitely getting her to Supreme Plus. I might actually go all in on getting her to Paragon, if I'm completely honest. Because yes, Faramore and Chimera, or whoever the other chick from AFK Arena that they're porting over is. I never played AFK Arena, so I don't know, and quite frankly, I don't really care. Maybe they are more exciting for people who have played the previous game, but I'm confident enough that I can get just a couple of copies from the pre-order bundle and be happy with that and not necessarily need to build them and call it a day there. I'm happy with the Graveborn that I have, especially after, Bonnie pretty much defined the Graveborn meta. Because I'm pretty sure Shimmy was a Graveborn. Anyway, I'm enough talking. We'll get to that in a moment, but first let's actually fully pull for Gerda. Okay. Yeah, I really gotta get her plus 10 with her weapon. But for right now, Supreme plus 5 on the weapon. Pretty good. So, Gerda. What does she do? What does she bring to the table? Why should anyone care? Gerda is a little bit of a weird character because, yes, she is a tank, as you can see up at the top by her icon. But with how much healing she provides, she kind of acts as a pseudo-support, which is really weird for a tank. I know that we have some tanks that sort of have, like, their own sort of self-healing mechanic, like Brutus and Thorin have kind of, like, revive mechanics in their kit that give them back health in order to fight a second time. But Gerda actually has, like, AoE healing in her kit that can affect allies and also affects enemies. I'm just gonna clear this up real quick because I know that a lot of people are like, oh, why do we have a tank that heals enemies? That seems like the dumbest thing ever. First off, if you actually look at the differential, wherever it is. Yeah, so when the battle starts, leaps forward, tiles, creates hot springs, smash on the ground, whatever. Allies within the area recover 25%. Okay, so 27% of their health per second. So keep that in mind, 27%. While enemies recover 4% health per second, capped at 0.5 of their maximum health. So, how do I want to do this to be fair? 20. If we bump this number, right now it says 27, let's just say, actually, hold on. It's not even that. Yes, it is. Never mind, I lied. I thought this was affecting healing. But if we're looking at this 27, if we just want to be fair, let's bump it up to 28 just as a nice round number. That is still, what, 7? 8. That is still 8 times the amount of healing that any enemies are going to be getting. And there's no cap to the healing that your allies get, but there is a cap to the healing that your enemies get. And that cap is very, very small. I don't think people fully understand what 0.5% actually ultimately looks like. So you might be still thinking, why heal enemies at all? Let me... Yeah, so for her ultimate, each time a target receives healing equal to 10% of their max HP... let's actually skip that line for a second just to keep things straightforward. Each time a target is healed 3 times by Gerda's Hot Spring, the sleep extends by 0.5 seconds up to 3 seconds. So you know that her ultimate puts people to sleep. Because it also heals enemies for very minor amounts, an enemy is still a target. So if an enemy is healed 3 times by Gerda's Hot Spring, it still extends the sleep duration for her ultimate. So I know it's a little bit of a cutesy mechanic. I know it's a little bit gimmicky in a way where it's like, oh, the healing comes from the hot springs, and when people are becoming more relaxed in the hot springs, then they'll just let their woes fade away and they can actually relax, and that's why they sleep in the hot spring. You know, I could go into detail about how, like, honestly, how creative the flavor of Gerda's kit is, even though mechanically it's a little bit odd. But that's essentially how it is working. Enemies being healed by Gerda's hot springs also boosts her ultimate in addition to allies. And I honestly think that's something that the developers found through playtesting, is that they wanted to do this for the allies, but just having it for allies was not enough. So by her being a melee tank, she is extending the healing to enemies that she is absolutely going to be in range of. And that's where she's consistently getting most of her ultimate back. So, again, where does Gerda actually fit into the meta? There was a very particular strategy for AFK pushing that existed about halfway through Song of Strife. Puzzle did a video on it. I'm not gonna copy the video or show it here, but I will post a link to it in the description if you're interested in seeing it. Most of the information is technically outdated, but it describes a very specific team comp for AFK stage pushing that revolves around one character in particular. And that one character in particular is Smokey. Here's the thing about Smokey. When you get Smokey to Mythic Plus,
you all right?
And you start upgrading his weapon, Smokey and Murray, special aroma, third effect, increasing tile by 1, yada yada yada, making the enemies within the skill range lose 12% of their maximum HP per second. So, 12% is very, very high of a number compared to 0.5 of their maximum HP. And of course, if you get it up to level 4, like I did invest the resources into it, I got it all the way up to 15%. So this is a 14.5% differential as far as healing, or sorry, the damage that Smokey is dealing versus the healing that Gerda is providing to enemies. And what this strategy was, is it was putting Smokey in the front line, putting a tank up front so that way that tank could start absorbing all the damage, keeping Smokey alive, and then it was just a bunch of healers keeping everybody alive. And what exactly that team comp looked like, as much as I enjoy this wilder team for AFK pushing, we're going to switch things out a little bit. Obviously, you had Smokey. He was your main damage dealer. The tank that you had at the time was Entendre, because we didn't have anybody else at the time. Then the healers that we had were Coco, and that kind of gives you a little boost to Maulers. Then you had a couple of options. The most common way to do this team comp was having Hewin and having Rowan. So you might be looking at this comp, and there's going to be a few things that stick out about it. There isn't a whole lot of synergy other than just kind of throwing, at the time, what was the 4 best healers in the game, just plop them right onto the battlefield. They're all healing up each other. Entendre's just kind of doing her own thing, and then going from there. With Gerda, she's going to be taking Entendre's slot. Because with a team comp that, yes, Smokey is focused on, he's going to be the primary damage dealer with his weapon, but he was also a healer in of himself. So this team comp originally had 4 healers. By switching out Entendre for Gerda, now we have 5 healers in the team comp. But wait, there's more. If we're updating what this composition looks like, you might notice that we're still missing out on the bonus because we only have the 3 Maulers, and Rowan and Hewin are just kind of in there just because they're healers, and that's about it. There is one thing to note about the Smokey healer damage comp. This was meta about halfway through Song of Strife, meaning that it wasn't common by the end of Song of Strife. But there was one piece of it that we got at the end of Song of Strife that really would have pushed this forward a little bit more. And of course, that is probably one of the other best healers in the game, Makola. So switching out one of the other two healers for Makola, I think now we essentially have our core team. We have Smokey as the damage dealer, Gerda as another healer that also provides a lot of crowd control and is also serving the purpose of the tank. She is just the beefcake in the front, taking all the heat. And you know that she's guaranteed to be taking all the heat because she starts the battle off leaping forward to create the hot spring. So even if you put Smokey in the very front of the starting positioning, which I think you should, so that way Smokey always gets the widest range to cover as much of the battlefield as possible, Gerda is still going to be in the front just because her self-displacement, for lack of a better way of putting it, is always putting her in the front anyway. Then you still have Coco, who Coco's healing isn't that great. Let me save this real quick. We'll just go over Coco a little bit.
Wow! My favorite!
Wait, hold on, I just want to check something.
Wow!
Ooh.
My favorite! Pato!
Okay, that's nice. I have 30 out of 45, which means that the next time the Dream Store resets and I buy all the Cocos, I'm going to have a Paragon Coco. That's going to be fun. But anyway, aside from that, looking at Coco's skills, does have healing in their kit. Where is it? Yeah, Coco feeds the weakest ally with meat on the bone, and providing an attack buff for 5 seconds. I think that's going to be okay. If I'm thinking about this correctly, that attack buff is always going to be going to Gerda because she's always going to be the one taking the brunt of the damage unless the enemy team has like Sylvina or Valka or not Valka. Oh my gosh, there are too many people with similar names. The Lightbearer Assassin who's like Dainty Princess by day and then Batman by night. I forget her name, I apologize. It might be Vanna. Vala. No, her name is Vala. Lady Vala. That's what it is. Anyway, unless they have, like, a assassin that immediately goes into the back lines or a Rainer that displaces our back line, Gerda being all the way up in the front is going to be taking the brunt of the damage anyway. So chances are from Coco's healing, she's going to be getting the healing every single time, which means she is also going to be getting the 10% attack for 5 seconds. I don't think that matters a whole lot, but considering Gerda is also going to be doing a lot of the AoE CC and the single target CC with the stun from her, I think it's her weapon, where she smashes them and stuns them and gets a shield and all that stuff. I do think that 10% attack is going to be going to Gerda most of the time anyway. But that's not the main reason you ran Coco. The main reason you ran Coco... was this it? No, that wasn't it. I think it was just her ultimate. Coco inspires herself and all allies, granting them a 45% damage reduction for 12 seconds. And yes, there is a lot of extra text to that. They receive true damage afterwards. There's life drain. There's attack from the wet equipment. They get shield after that and stuff like that. But the big thing about Coco, aside from the minor healing that she provided to herself and a single target, the 45 damage reduction is absolutely insane. That was a huge reason you ran her. And a big part of what made the team work, also a main reason that you ran Hewen. With Hewen's ultimate, that was just healing. Where is it? Yeah, this part. Hewin is unaffected for 6 seconds while casting her ultimate, Rain Prayer. During this time, all allies take 30% less damage. So, we'll talk about who the flex slot is going to. Very strong argument for Hewin. I think I'm also going to be investing Hewin into Paragon, since I did get Brutus all the way up to Paragon already. I'm just going to be spending my arena token stores just on Hewin. I think there's going to be, and once I get her exclusive equipment up, 36% less damage. So on top of Coco's 45% damage reduction, that's, what is that, 81%? Currently 79% with where I have my Hewin. That's a lot of damage reduction. I don't think anybody's going to be dying if you have Hewin. But even aside from that, kind of ignoring Hewin for a second, now we also have Makola.
Huh? Hold up. Is the competition starting?
And Makola, aside from being a mauler and providing that faction team bonus, which was a very important piece that the original team comp with just Coco, Smokey, and Entendre was missing, Makola also provides a huge amount of team buffs. Where is it? The arena, spanning the battlefield, when they have control over it, increases allies' attacks 21%, and restores healing. So Makola is also a healer. But where is it? Yeah, here's another part of it. Makola rings her bell, and this isn't even her ultimate skill, but she rings her bell, restoring 150% HP and increasing physical and magical defense by 40% for herself and the 2 weakest allies for 5 seconds. So Makola is another example of just a lot of, I want to say, like, battlefield utility just from her arena, but she's providing a lot of healing through that. And she's also providing a lot of healing and resistances through this. So now, all of a sudden, you don't necessarily need both the Hewin and the Rowan. You got the Makola for additional resistances. So between all these resistances, all this healing, because, now, with Gerda being the healer that was a tank, because remember, in the original composition, Entendre was the tank, but she was not a healer in the slightest. She had her shield for herself, and that was about it. But now that, even if we replaced Rowan, we still have the 4 healers. And now we can flex slot the 5th position into anything we want. There's going to be a lot of arguments for what that 5th position should be. You could still absolutely go Hewin for additional damage reduction. You could still absolutely go Rowan, who is partially a healer, but also increases hastes for the ultimates, and that's going to be really important mostly for Smokey. So absolutely a huge argument for Rowan. Probably also going to be investing into Paragon for Rowan as well, maybe after I get Hewin up there. But there was one thing that Puzzle mentioned in his video about the original team comp, which is that it really only works if there are a lot of enemies all at once that Smokey can take out with his effective aroma as he gets it up. But it was very much AoE centric, and excuse me. And it was very AoE centric, but it lacked a lot of single target. So that's why I'm thinking, with this team comp as it is, because you remember the original team comp did survive off of just having 4 healers to start. We don't necessarily need all 5 of them to be healers. I'm thinking that the last one...
Inventory?
I'm thinking that the last one could be Shakir. And this would be the updated Smokey damage comp that I would be running if I were looking to push AFK stages. Reason I'm looking at Shakir.
Get a taste of this!
For one thing, I'm actually pretty close to ascending him to Paragon, so that's going to be a fun one. But even aside from that, his ultimate, he morphs into a wolf, smashing tiles, yada yada, dealing a lot of damage to enemies with 2 tiles. Shakir generates a lupine aura within a 2-tile range, dealing damage to all enemies within the frontline radius. Allies within the range of the lupine aura reduce 22% taken damage and increase their haste by 13, whatever that is. Actually, level 5 ultimate, reduce damage that allies take while Shakir is ulting by 27% and increases their haste by 28. So, again, even with Shakir, his primary role being single target damage or slightly AoE damage, just basically him being a big old damage source for what this team composition is, he is still providing damage reduction. So he still fits the role of what the Huon was providing, or what Makola couldn't provide because Makola wasn't out by then. So all in all, for pushing AFK stages, here's an updated version of what a formerly meta team looked like. And I don't think that this updated version of that team could work without Gerda. I think that this is what Gerda's home is going to look like. And in order to put my money where my mouth is, let's see how far we can push in AFK stages. Do that first. Okay, so quite a bit has happened as I was doing some experimenting with everything. I'm probably going to do this video twice. I'll probably do a cut version where I skip over all the battles and start up right here, right now with all the final results, and then uncut version where you can kind of see everything in real time. But essentially what I found out, Gerda is actually really, really good. I had some self-doubt when, it just couldn't push through some of the stages, and then I tried going back to the original team with Rowan, Huon, and Tandra, and that team didn't really seem to work any better than the Gerda one, so it just felt like a toss-up as to whether Gerda was actually worth it or not. Apparently, that entire time, I forgot to purchase the charms for Gerda, so she was very much slacking in stats behind pretty much all the other characters that I had out in the battlefield. So once I brought her up to speed, she was definitely a force to be reckoned with. Gerda honestly is really, really good. She's not as meta-defining as I thought she was going to be. I really thought I was onto something here. I don't necessarily think I was wrong with the premises, but I was certainly wrong with the conclusion. Two of the big things I noticed, this team and style of team, like the Smokey being the damager and all that, it absolutely works for the sustain part of it. There was not a single time where my entire team died. There was only one instance, I think, where maybe like 3 characters died, but the other 2 just kind of sustained themselves before the timer ran out. And most of the time, all of the characters finished the end of the round with full health, even if they lost due to the timer. So the sustain part of it was true. Smokey was very weak to being silenced, and Shakir was not enough to be the makeup damage, the catch-up damage for when Smokey couldn't do his part, or like pull his weight as being the damage dealer. when it did work for Smokey, it absolutely worked for Smokey. There were a few other obstacles, like if Smokey got displaced and pushed all the way to the back line, then he would try and use the third part of his ultimate to start dealing the damage, but he was pushed so far back that he couldn't reach any enemies anyway, so he just wasn't dealing damage then. If he was silenced or interrupted or got CC'd or whatever, then he couldn't do any damage. So when it worked, it definitely worked, but there are too many conditions that could make it not work. And like I said, Shakir wasn't pulling his weight, so partway through, fairly early on actually, I just decided to replace Shakir with Odie. Reason being, Odie just being a marksman just relies basically on ranged basic attacks, so silencing Odie doesn't matter. And he can stay so far back and still deal all the damage that he needs to from across the map that, you know, he can't be displaced, he can't be silenced, he can't really be interrupted, but he's still gaining the benefit of the healing from all 4 of the other healers, that even if he's not healing himself, even if he doesn't necessarily have the life drain that, you know, even though Coco provides life drain, even if he doesn't necessarily have that life drain, he is still surviving very, very well. And even if Smokey is silenced and not healing properly, you know, there's more than enough healing going around that Odie was perfectly fine on his own just pretty much all the time. So, you know, it's tough to say. I don't know if I can really necessarily call this a Smokey damage comp the same way that it used to be back in Song of Strife. Because, again, Smokey is just too weak and too susceptible to everything that could possibly go wrong for him, that he just functions better as a more consistent healer, even at Supreme Plus. He's still definitely worth running. Honestly, I think this team comp is pretty solid overall and is still worth running just because of the sustain that everybody provides and just keeping Odie alive to begin with anyway. Because when I ran, you know, my Mauler comps in the past, even with running, when I was just running one healer, usually it was just Makola. And what was my standard comp? It was Entendre, Brutus, Odie, Soren, and Makola. Even when I was just running them, Makola was not enough healing to keep Odie alive, that if Odie got just insta-killed by Lady Vala or Sylvana or Selena, whatever her name is, pretty much any of your typical backline diver rogues, then the rest of the comp is just done. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of experimenting that still needs to go on, but overall, my impressions of Gerda are still really high. If you want to save your resources so that way you're pulling for Faramore and Shamira, honestly, that is a very logical stance. By all means, go for it. There's definitely merit to it. But everybody that is saying that Gerda is completely useless because why would you want a tank that is healing enemies, that's completely counterintuitive? Why do we need another healer? Why do we need another tank? Why do we need, you know, yada, yada, yada. I think once you get her ranked up, you know, at least to Mythic Plus, if not Supreme Plus, which is what you should be doing, though, right? You want to get the heroes that you like as high as you possibly can. I don't think you can just settle for having a legendary copy or an elite copy and then just calling it a day. All of your good heroes should be at least Mythic Plus. And I think once you get Gerda to that level, if you get enough pulls for her, then I think she has merit in compositions, and I think she is a force to be reckoned with. But you could see that in the full version of the video. I'm gonna cut it off here. I've done enough rambling, and I think even though I had to do some trial and error and modifications to my own ideas as well, I think I was able to prove my point. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you again in the future.